Imagine the year 1989. Japan is at the top of the world. The country is gripped by such euphoria that the theoretical value of the land under the Imperial Palace in Tokyo is worth more than all the real estate in the entire state of California, or even the entire country of Canada. At the time, Japanese stock account for an incredible 42% of the global stock market. The world fears an economic Pearl Harbor, as Japanese companies buy up American icons like Rockefeller Center. But beneath this glittering surface, a bomb is already ticking. Today, we look at how destroyed post-war Japan became technological king and why its engine stalled 30 years ago in state of endless stagnation. Chapter 1: The Architecture of the Miracle. In August 1945, Japan was in ruins. It had lost 3 million lives and a quarter of its industrial capacity. The first step towards recovery was paradoxically a strict fiscal diet, known as the Dutch line. While it eradicated hyperinflation, it caused a brutal recession. The real restart came with the Korean War in 1950. American military orders, which the Japanese call blessed rain from heaven, accounted for 60% of all Japanese exports at the time. Japan built a unique system to capitalize on this. First, the MITE ministry. The state left nothing to chance and centrally managed the purchase of technology from the West. Second, the Keiretsu system. These were giant conglomerates linked to their own banks, focusing not on immediate profit but on total market dominance. Third, household savings. Japanese citizens save up to 18% of their income, providing banks with cheap capital for massive investment in steel, cars, and electronics. The result? Between 1955 and 1975, the Japanese economy grew by an unbelievable 4,900%. Chapter 2: The Plaza Accord and the Birth of the Bubble. By the 1980s, the West, particularly the US, began to view Japanese dominance as a threat. In 1985, the Plaza Accord was signed, an agreement between superpowers to artificially weaken the dollar against the yen. A strong yen made Japanese goods more expensive abroad, so the Bank of Japan, panicking over potential recession, slashed interest rates to minimum and flooded the market with cheap money. This triggered the greatest speculative menace in history. Companies stopped using money for research and development. Instead, they used it to buy land and stocks. Between 1956 and 1986, land prices rose by 5,000%, while the pieces of everyday goods in store only doubled. People believed the myth that in Japan, real estate prices could never fail. Chapter 3: The Crash and the Era of Zombie Companies. In January 1991, the House of Cards collapsed. The stock market lost 60% of its value, and over $2 trillion simply vanished. Japan fell into a balance sheet recession. Companies stopped investing and used all their cash just to pay down the debt. The economy became stuck in a liquidity trap, where even 0% interest rates couldn't entice anyone to take out a loan. This is where Japan made its greatest structural mistake: regulatory forbearance. The state and the banks were afraid to admit their losses, so they began to keep zombie companies on life support. These were firms that were functionally insolvent and couldn't even cover their interest payments, but banks kept rolling over their loans to avoid writing them off as losses. By 2022, these living debt still made up 17% of all companies in Japan. These firms clog the market, hold onto inefficient labor, and prevent the rise of innovative startups. Chapter 4: The Digital Fall and Silver Democracy. While Japan was busy saving its zombies in the 90s, the world moved on. Japan dominated hardware, TVs, and Walkmans, but completely missed the software revolution. It suffered from what is known as Galapagos syndrome, developing technologies that were world-class but only usable within the Japanese market. This cut them off from the global success of the iPhone or the cloud. Compounding this was a demographic collapse. Japan is losing 1 million people a year, and the birth rate has dropped to 1.15. The country has become a silver democracy. Voters over the age of 65 now make up more than 30% of population. Politicians are forced to spend 9% of the GDP on the elderly, while only 1.6% goes to families and children. The older generation, through their sheer voting power, effectively blocks any reforms that would prioritize the future of the youth over the stability of pensions. Conclusion: Japan in 2026, a return to strength? Today, in 2026, Japan stands at a crossroads. It carries the highest debt in the world at 227% of its GDP. Yet, it still holds a quiet monopoly on critical technologies, such as the machines required to manufacture high-end microchips. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, Japan is finally moving away from its post-war pacifism, facing an increasingly assertive China. Japan is recording record-breaking increases in its defense budget to 2% of GDP and is purchasing long-range offensive missiles. Japan is no longer trying to dominate the world as an economic giant. It is trying to survive as a heavily armed anchor of security in the Pacific. The story of Japan is warning to us all. Stagnation is not an accident, it is the result of choosing to protect the past at the expense of the future. Thanks for watching. If you want to know why the DR Congo sits on a treasure trove but remains one of the poorest countries on earth, check out my last video right here. Don't forget to subscribe.